Our next presentation is Automagic LibApps, and our presenter is Logan Rath from the College of Brockport. Logan is an associate librarian at the College of Brockport, State University of New York, where he focuses on information literacy instruction. Logan primarily supports students and faculty in the departments of Education and Human Development, Social Work, Modern Languages and Cultures, Criminal Justice, and several other departments on campus. So we will switch over to Logan.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Hey.
So let me start my slideshow. So good morning, everyone. I'm Logan. I'm at Brockport. There's my Twitter handle and the hashtag for the event. I'm going to sort of move through this a little quickly since we're running behind. Acronyms will be used in this presentation, and so I wanted to let you know what they are up front. LibApps is one of SpringShare's trademarks. It's what they use as sort of the unifying theme through all of their various products. LTI stands for Learning Tool Integration, and that is how something talks to Blackboard. The CMS is a content management system. And so now it's time for a poll. And these are free images I found online that I thought were kind of funny. So Bill, if you would pop up the poll question I sent you. Okay, so I want to know.
So the question. Oh, go ahead, Logan. Sorry.
Yeah, so I want to know what your level of familiarity with the LibApps LTI is. Are you currently using it in Automagic or manual mode? Are you familiar with it but not using it, or are you completely unfamiliar with it?
All right, it's been about 35 seconds. Question, what's your level of familiarity with LibApps LTI? Currently using it in Automagic mode, we've got 2 out of 57 attendees at 4%. Currently using it in manual mode, 3 out of 58 at 5%. Familiar with the concept but not using it yet, we've got 14 out of 60 people at 23%, and unfamiliar with it, 41 out of 60 attendees at 68%.
Okay, thank you. That's going to be that's good. So this might change your life. And so our problem, we needed a scalable way to connect students to the appropriate LibGuide, specifically from Blackboard. It's just an issue for us. We use LibGuides, we use them extensively, and we needed to connect students to them. We wanted to scale or direct them more to the guide when they're in their Blackboard course. And so manually adding guides, no. We tried manually adding guides to each course. That was an option until we looked at how many course sections there were. And there are 2,038 course sections in fall. And we figured if this takes about 2 to 3 minutes a piece, we're looking at like 67 hours of doing nothing but adding links in Blackboard. And you'd go crazy doing that each semester. So that's not going to work. U of R's building block. So University of Rochester, U of R, they had a building block, which is a piece of code that makes Blackboard do more stuff. And it would append the course code to the LibGuides base. The problem is we didn't want to create guides for each class. So they would have a guide for Psychology 101, and then another guide for Psych 102, and another guide for Psych 103. We tend to use more of a discipline approach when it comes to our LibGuides so that they're easier to maintain. And so that just wasn't going to work. But our ideal solution was some sort of magic piece of code out there that would find out if a course guide exists, load that guide. And then if there's no specific course guide, go look at the discipline guides and pick the one that works. And then if nothing else works, if it can't find something that's good, load a general guide. And so we have this idea ready to go, and we now just had to implement it. And we figured, I started looking around at PHP and JavaScript and the guts of Blackboard. I read documentation that people don't really want to read. And I found somewhere deep in the garage, as they call it, which I thought was an apt name, these course context variables. And they help identify parts of the course. And so I'll show you where this comes up in a bit, but you would use this @X @ through @X @. And we can use these to extract the course number. So our first solution was to develop a page as part of the course shell that would load the library-specific resources, including a link to the guide, because we can use this context, we can get it, we can pull out what we need to pull out. And we figured that search, our hours, some important links, and chat were the most important things to get into this page in Blackboard, because that's what our users want. And so this was our first solution. And we had coded this in Blackboard and had it sort of look like the rest of Blackboard. And you had your search in the upper left-hand corner, which was just some HTML code that we used on our webpage. Our hours were being pulled in based on a script. We had our chat box, and then we had the specific resources. And it pulled the course name, and it populated that blue button that says Research Guide, and it went to the appropriate guide. We also put a couple extra links down and then said, you know, if you need something else, start on the library homepage, because we're not trying to replace the library homepage. We're just trying to make it so that people don't have to remember to go to the library homepage. And we thought that this was great. We had really stumbled on something. We piloted this with a couple classes for the first semester, got really great feedback. So we knew we were onto something. But it wouldn't work. Ultimately, it wasn't scalable. We tried to work with our Blackboard administrator, and we couldn't figure out an easy way to have this page go live as part of the course shell. We could figure out how to do that manual thing where we added it to every single course, but again, 67 hours of time that no one has. And then SpringShare tweeted, and it happened in March 16th of last year, that they were creating this Automagic LTI because they had already had an LTI where you could very quickly add a LibGuide without having to go and find the URL and add it as a web link. And so I tweeted out, you know, that when they release an LTI tool the same week, you've hand coded the integration yourself. And they reached back to me. And we actually came up with a joint solution because what they had wasn't going to work exactly. And it's because we had our LibGuides, our course names in Blackboard were structured differently than they had planned for. And I went back and forth with Slavin, and we realized that if we used a regular expression on that variable, which is here in the code where it says preg match, you could use that to say find anything that has 3 capital letters in a row followed by 3 numbers in a row, and find that part in that course name variable. And I'm going to try to make it work. And I think I may have to do a new share of my desktop. And so this is what our course names look like. And so you'd have the semester, part of the course, and then the name of the course. And with this code, you could get the part that you actually needed. And we thought, hey, we're on to something now. And so that was part of the magic that we had to build up. And we were very happy they were willing to work with us on this. And so how it works, this is what it actually looks like. And if we have time, I can give you a tour of some live courses. So this is on the left is the standard menu for Blackboard. And we put in the library resources link. And we went through proper channels, but the key that worked for us was they have this contact the help desk link in there. And that was another department putting something in the course shell. And we said to our Blackboard administrators that, you know, if the help desk gets a link, the library should have a link. And we're not asking to be placed up top. We want to be towards the bottom. We'd be fine being the last link if that's what needs to be. But if you click that link, this Automagic LTI will load the correct LibGuide. So that's how it works. Now I'm going to walk you through sort of the setting it up process so that you can replicate these steps if you have LibGuides CMS. So what happens next? So when you click that, the preg match gets that code and compares it to first guide metadata, then to friendly URLs, then to subject metadata, and if none of those work, it'll load the default page. So we thought we were onto something here. And we were. This is just a chart that shows our fall use by guide from just the LTIs. And you can see that our nursing guide has had over 1,400 hits. The Fine Library Resources guide was our default guide, but then you had business and economics, English 112, kinesiology, sports studies, psychology, ed theory, communication, public health. These are all high instruction. And it's interesting to see where we get down to, like, public administration has some instruction, but not a lot. Delta College has some instruction, but not a lot. Computer science, very little. And so there does seem to be a definite correlation between instruction sessions and guide use. And I see Michelle has a question, and we'll come to that at the end. So more numbers, just to see how many actually used it. So remember, 238 course sections, 1266 courses clicked the link 1+ time, which was awesome. We don't go into 1,200 sessions or sections of courses. So to know that we can reach courses that we can't necessarily reach in person, we're great. This resulted in 45 unique guides being accessed, and 34 of those guides were hit more than 100 times. Okay. Now setting up the Automagic. So you have to configure the parameters. And so in the guts of the LibApps LTI settings, you'll find parameter matching. And we had to use our context title. That was the course name, the really long course name that started with the semester and ended with the title of the course. And then you set up a variable called the LibGuides metadata name, and you can pick whatever you want. We went simple and went with LTI. Our search type, we chose stepped. So the way a step search works is that it will, for us, run that entire match string. So it might get EDI 423. And then it'll look for matches that have metadata of EDI 423. If it doesn't find anything for EDI 423, it chops the last character off and now does a search for EDI 42. And then it'll keep going. So eventually you can get to just the disciplinary prefix. We set up content display behavior so that when you click the link, if no matches are found, display the default guide. It was just a checkbox. And then we went through each of our guides and we added a custom metadata tag. And it has to match exactly. So there's that LibGuides metadata name, and we went in and it's right under your guide settings. You'll see add metadata. And then it's on the custom metadata tab, and you add in the same thing, character for character, capitals count. And then the value, we used capital letters for our values because case sensitivity is an issue, and Blackboard uses capital letters. So our process. We decided we didn't know all the courses, and we didn't want to spend the time going through our course listing, so we emailed the registrar and said, can you give us all the courses and their titles? We checked for cross-listed courses, and then we divided up and conquered the list to identify courses where the discipline code doesn't work. So business writing. Our business writing course is offered through the English department, and it's coded as ENG 302. But all we had to do was go to the business guide and add a metadata entry. I'll go back to this screen. And the value was ENG 302. Because remember, it does a step search. So it's going to look for any metadata value that says ENG 302. So when it finds that on the business guide, it loads it and stops. But for all other ENG courses, it finds the English guide, which is tagged ENG. So our next steps, and then I'll be able to take some questions and show some live stuff. We did realize that 1,098 links resulted in the generic guide. So now we have to go through the list and fix those that need fixing. We realized that one discipline got left off our massive fix because it was a distributed model. and we need to go back and add that. We're going to reach out to courses with high clicks that don't receive library instruction just to see if they're good, if they want to customize the guide, if something doesn't work for them. And then we do need to continue getting the word out about this. I thought we were pretty successful with just one quick email to our campus newsletter and have them put an article in for our daily Eagle, it's called, which is just a news article that gets mailed to everyone, letting faculty know that this change had happened. We don't know of anyone who's deleted the link, and we figure that's a win because even if the professor doesn't use it, a student may find it. Okay, now I'm going to open it up for questions.
Okay, thanks, Logan.
Yeah, it's a lot of information really quick, but I will make the slides available and I can be contacted after this.
Expect to be contacted by me. Darcy wanted to know if it works with Moodle also, this basic procedure.
It says it does. That's the beauty of an LTI, is that it works with everyone. It's supposed to work with all the big players as long as your LMS people can configure it.
Yeah, and Michelle had a nice long question. They've tried to add manual LTI boxes, which makes the student click launch a couple times to get to the content. But when they click the link that you've set up automatically, does that just load the page, or do they have to click a few times?
Well, I'll show you exactly how it would work.
Perfect segue.
So you can see my desktop now, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So this is my Blackboard, and I'm only enrolled in a few classes this semester. This is what happens when you do online stuff. We also have a unique role set up in Blackboard so that we have librarian, which is sort of like a TA, but not, and librarian grader. So I'm going to go into, this is actually, I have some fall courses here. So I'll go into a fall course just so that you can see, and I'll go into that social studies course. And so I'm going to click library resources, and then it auto redirects and it just loads to the curriculum resources guide. So Michelle, I do see that link launch is there, but we were able to set it to auto launch. And I don't know exactly how, but I can ask Bob.
Yeah, I feel like seeing it on the student end also looks a little different. Like I feel like they don't actually have to click it, but that might just be how ours was configured at Maritime. We did have another question from Dana who wanted to know if anyone's had luck with Canvas, which I would imagine is the same. Do you know if anyone is using it that way, Logan?
I don't. I know Geneseo is switching to Canvas, so it might be worth reaching out to them. I don't know if they're using this, though, this way. But SpringShare support is also very responsive. And we pay for support as part of our subscription fees. So I would say, you know, if it doesn't work, they will make it work, or they should make it work because you're paying for it. Right. And I can show everyone how I've set up the metadata.
Yeah. Have you used it with the new way that you could upload metadata to LibApps?
We have not, but I can show that as well, because that was one of the options that Slavin and I went back and forth over it being an option. So if you're on your guide here and you're logged in, you go to the gear where you would set up your editors, and it's guide metadata. And then I've gone in here, and this is the default guide for EDI. But I have several courses that actually need our curriculum resources guide. And so if I log into this LibApps, I can load the guide metadata. And this shows you many more tags that we were able to put in. So where this EDI 4.2 pulls all of the methods courses for elementary undergrad. But then we started realizing that, hey, there's this EDI 360, and there's this natural sciences course that's actually for education. And there's this graduate course where they actually need our curriculum resources instead of our theory resources.
We have another question from Dana following up. They tried to get help from Canvas before they got Spring Share, and they were happy to help for a fee. But like Michelle, they also have the redirect because it's not HTTPS. So the students have to click through.
Okay. I know ours is not HTTPS, but ours does just load. Or at least we haven't heard that it's a problem.
Right. That's always the biggest problem, is not hearing when it's a problem.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions for Logan? Yeah, I definitely expect to hear from you, Logan, because this is one of our projects that we plan on doing.
Yeah, it was something we knew we wanted to do, and we had to move sort of quickly on it. And if I hadn't had coded that original thing that replaced it, we wouldn't have been prepared to go live as early as we were. But the nice part about going live with this is we were able to get it up for the fall course shell, and that has to happen in April. So we knew the integration was coming, and then all of a sudden the deadline became a whole lot more real. Like, stuff will be broken if we don't finish this project.
Right.
And so that helped light a fire under us to make sure we got it right. But the hard part was getting it set up before the course shell rolls, at least getting the integration set up so that default guide shows.
Right. Yeah, that's our first step that we have to figure out. So I'm ready to go. I'm like, it's there.
Yeah. And everything for the configuration, once you have it, lives in LibApps and then this LTI tool builder. The metadata or the instance details, the data is hard to get out of here. So I actually had to email support and say, can you run the full download for me? I need all of the data. And they sent it to me. But you do have some sources that you can pull for data. And then the settings that I talked about were on the Automagic LTI. Oh, and Rebecca, you had talked about the translation table.
Yes.
So if you don't have that regex set up, and we emailed them and they made it sound like they had deployed this for everyone, but you can download this translation table template. And what that does is that lets you get from your Blackboard administrator a list of all the courses. And then you can manually populate the metadata tags. So for us, that would be like SWO or EDI. And then you upload it at once.
Yeah, I think what I was thinking of was they made it so you could not automatically, but in batch, update the guide metadata through spreadsheet.
Oh, yeah.
They have a template for that. They just came out with that maybe a month or two ago. And I'd started working with that. But now I know about the translation table, so I can take that to our Blackboard guy and go, here, you need to.
Yeah, and so here we have, here we can see all the metadata that's on every guide.
Right. Yeah, there's an export update. That's the new.
Yep.
The new toy they gave us.
Yeah, which is nice. I think that I do like how responsive they are as a vendor. That they really do seem to listen when we say something's wrong.
Does anyone else have any questions for Logan? I don't want to talk his ear off forever. Okay, give people a moment to type. The one thing about Zoom is it doesn't say when anyone is typing, it just says that they've typed. All right. Seems like no one else has any questions. If anyone does have any questions, please feel free to contact Logan. He will answer them. He is great, and he will definitely get back to you. So thank you, Logan. That was great.
And hopefully this is useful. Okay, I've stopped my.
Yes, and I'm switching back to mine.